It's the Converted Man here. Last time I asked Pastor a bunch of questions. Did he give us any answers? Not really. Nothing new, nothing that we didn't already know, nothing that he didn't already cover. Did he do anything with the critical feedback? Not that I can tell. He didn't seem to enjoy any of it. And yeah, that's it. It didn't really go much of anywhere. I asked him questions. He answered kind of, sort of, some of them barely, but without very much. And it also seemed to me that he didn't want to say, I don't know, because I was like, when and where was, the pieces of the Bible found? Oh, that's known. Oh, okay. It's just known. People know it. Okay. You don't know though. Just say, I don't know. What's the problem with saying that? Even though I'd reminded him a couple times I wasn't there to answer questions. I did answer some questions of his, but a couple of different times I said, I'm not answering questions. I'll answer questions later. This is you answering questions. And he didn't like that. It's a lot of things he didn't like. Whatever. Anyways, didn't get any answers. So here I am back at this thing. It's week 5 now. Does science disprove the Bible? Yet this is video number whatever the bleep it is, 16. The thing is, the problem is, when you're so wrong, it takes time to correct it. And like he was trying to ask, like, why did you skip this part or fast forward to that part? Because it's stuff I don't need to cover. It's stuff that I don't care about. It's irrelevant stuff. It's fluff. It's stuff we've heard before. Whatever. I got to get through this eventually. So, yeah, I'm going to skip over some parts. I'm going to skip past the boring anecdotes that just don't matter. The pointless jokes. Unless I feel like making fun of it. And I'm doing this live. So it's not like I know what he's going to do, per se. So, it's what I do. This is how it is. Anyways, I'm not even doing the video yet. I haven't even started and I'm already pissed off. Okay, so, does science disprove the Bible? Yes, that's the answer. Thanks for asking. Good game. Good night, everybody. Okay, we're not even going to start the video yet. Not even going to start his video yet. Hold on. Not yet. Let me go ahead and outline how science disproves the Bible, or at least parts of it. Okay. Biological evolution is an outright fact. Now, Pastor didn't seem to disagree with that when I talked to him. So that means no Adam and Eve. Can't have Adam and Eve because you couldn't have a first single male and a first single female that started the human race. That's how the story is portrayed. Therefore, that couldn't happen. Also, we don't have any example of this sort of garden paradise that's talked about. And apparently there's guards around it. So we could hypothetically find it. Why would you have guards if it's hidden? So you can find the Garden of Eden, but nobody's ever found it. Maybe we haven't looked in the right place. Or maybe it doesn't exist and we don't have any evidence that humans can be made from dirt. That's kind of a problem. Humans aren't made from dirt. Okay, well, but maybe the Bible's using colorful language. It's using poetic language. And when it says God made Adam from dirt, it doesn't really mean dirt. Well, also it gets how the universe and our solar system formed completely incorrectly. Well, it's just using colorful language. It's metaphor. Right, it didn't happen. The story of Genesis did not happen. Period. End of story. That's it. Science says no to the whole thing. No to the creation account. No to Adam and Eve. Also, no, there aren't talking serpents and or nagas, depending on which version you're using, depending on what you want to think. Good morning, good afternoon, good night to Blaster Master and everyone else out there, whoever's watching. Okay, so science disproves Genesis. That's it. Also, people don't live that long. Although, yes, the ages that are in Genesis of 900 and all that the creationists add up to try to get to 6,000, even though it's above 6,000 when you add them all together. Those ages are recorded based on how the Jewish people used to use their number system. So it's all screwed up. Well, then the question has to be asked, why doesn't it include that in the English versions? Well, sometimes it does as a footnote. Like there's like a little asterisk and whatever references in the bottom of the page. But really, who reads those? I mean, why wouldn't it just say, and then Adam lived to translate the number to the actual number of however long he actually lived, and say, and then put a note, in Hebrew, this was written as this number, and they counted differently in those times. See appendix for more. That way people would read it and go, oh, okay, Abraham only lived to, 98 or 70 or whatever he lived to. And it wouldn't be this absurd, insane, stupid number that can't possibly be true. Of course, then the creationists would say that the world is much younger than it is. So you'd have a whole different problem, I guess. But at least you would fix it. Why hasn't it been fixed? Tradition, I guess, whatever. All right. So Genesis, disproven. Flood. Okay, worldwide flood, impossible. Didn't happen, couldn't happen. There's not enough water on the planet for that to happen. It's just not a thing. Could not have happened in the way portrayed. Can't rain 40 days, 40 nights. It just, that doesn't happen. That's not how weather behaves. Well, maybe it could rain for that long, but not everywhere in the world at once. Maybe in a particular location it could. I don't know what the longest recorded rainfall is offhand, but it's the ark couldn't have floated the way it was. You can't take on 2 of every animal because there's too many animals, plus all the fish, plus all the insects, plus. You would have had nothing to feed everything after the flood, and so on and so forth. As an aside, I've been watching this show Manifest, pretty good show, and they mentioned something about Noah, which I thought was kind of interesting. There's a story that Noah actually is the cause of the flood, that he calls out to God, telling God, wipe out all these people. And so Noah's like the bad guy. And I'm like, hey, that's kind of interesting. That makes God kind of less of a bad guy in that scenario, because he's just doing what somebody asked him to, and then you can blame Noah, and you're like, well, God didn't, he wanted to help his friend Noah out, whatever. But that's not how the story goes. So God is evil, and therefore God can't be good. So therefore that story couldn't happen. So they're good. Well, that's not using science. It's just using, I don't know, reason to. But going back to science, yeah, it doesn't work. You can't do that. You would bottleneck if you selected only 2 animals and all that. Can't have a worldwide flood. Okay, it's a local flood, a localized flood. You still can't build an ark that fast. With and we don't know how many people was like his family, Noah's family, and the wives and all that, and his wife, and they wouldn't have been able to build that boat within any reasonable time, or maybe at all. Wouldn't be seaworthy at all, and it's just it can't happen. It couldn't have happened the way it's portrayed. So therefore, since it didn't happen the way it's portrayed, then it didn't really happen. So even if it happened, well, maybe it was a small raft, and maybe he just brought his family on board and a couple of chickens. Fine, but then the story is wrong. And science pretty much says that. Okay, what else? The Exodus. That didn't happen. How do we know? Well, there's a lot of reasons we know. First, we haven't had any evidence of an exodus of that size or at all. We would have found something. You would think, well, lack of evidence is, yeah, that's absence of evidence is evidence of absence. Well, yeah, but you don't have any evidence. Also, by the way, the Egyptians didn't have slaves in that way. They may have had a few slaves, but not as many as the Bible portrays. Plus, the Jewish people probably weren't even slaves, and whether or not they were actually in Egypt at that time is questionable. So there's plenty to shed doubt on this, and plenty of archaeological reasons to think that this isn't the way it was. The people that built the pyramids weren't slaves. They were hired workers. So, and the amount of Jewish people that are claimed did not exist at that time. So it's all wrong. It's completely wrong. Science says no to that. Okay, so there goes Exodus. What else? I don't know. You got a woman turn into a pillar of salt. I'm sure that would take some insane amount of energy to do. Pretty much impossible to do. Well, all the miracles are scientifically impossible by their very nature. So there goes every miracle in the Bible. So that pretty much does that in. You can't have any of the miracles, because if they defy the laws of physics, then that's not science. It's no longer science. It's magic. And so science would say no to magic, and therefore all the miracle claims go away. And so there goes Jesus and him coming back to life and everything else, all that stuff. It's all make believe. It's all fairy tales as far as that goes. So yes, science disproves the Bible. But apologist has to argue that it proves the Bible. So what's he going to say? Probably something like the broken Kalam or a variant thereof. I don't know. He's probably going to mention again that the 4 facts that all the people agree with can't be explained any other way, but Jesus came back from the dead, which isn't scientifically accurate. Therefore, no, wouldn't fit, but he might bring that up. I don't know. He might bring up morals again, even though morals are better explained by the fact that societies exist and that evolution guides us and society guides us, and we evolve with societies and societies with us, and thus morals that work to maintain a cohesive society would evolve. Now, does that make those morals good or bad? It really depends. There are some societies that are not as great for the individual as they are for certain other individuals, and some favor the group, some favor smaller groups. So it just depends. But if society functions well enough, then the morals survive and are passed on. But I'm sure we're going to ignore all of that because, I guess we'll probably have the beginning of the universe and the fine-tuning, both of which aren't really actually supported in the way that he would need them to be supported. The beginning of the universe isn't really the beginning in that sense. Scientists have said this many times. Now, of course, Pastor, when I talked to him, mentioned Stephen Hawking. And I wish I'd thought of it at the time and come back with, oh, really, you agree with Hawking? Great. Then God couldn't have done anything, because Stephen Hawking also said anything that happened before the Big Bang could not affect what happened after. But we like cherry picking, so I'm sure we're going to hear some cherry picking of scientists in this thing, and I'm going to go insane. So let's get right to it. Let me go insane. He's going to start with a question. Here we go. This is going to be stupid. All right.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever gotten stuck in a boring conversation?
Yes, it happened when I talked to you. Yes. Anyways, yeah.
Have you ever been forced to just sit there and endure a one-sided, mind-numbing torrent of words and thoughts?
Yeah, this series that you created.
Thoughts that are of absolutely no interest to you whatsoever.
Yes, this series.
Saying yes, Darren, I'm experiencing that right now, actually.
Right now, yes. You finally made a joke that I agree with. Yes.
20 years of my life, That was my perception of the church. If I was asked to sum up my concept of a church service back then, it would have
boring.
been this. A church service is a place where a guy takes an hour to answer a question that nobody's asking.
Yeah, pretty much like what you're doing. Let's get to the science part.
That was my concept. We were little kids. I have 3 siblings back in Ontario. And we would, on a Sunday morning, pretend we were sleeping until it was too late to get to church. They'd wake up and they would take us to Sunday, go to church, and then we'd get up and play. Thought church was as a little kid. And since God calling me to be a pastor, tormented and depressed by one thought. The thought that I would have to spend the rest of my life boring people. I don't have to bore people. I determined very early boring people in the job description of a lead pastor. I determined very early in my ministry to do my best to not be boring.
Well, there's still time for you to work on that. I'm funny.
So we work hard here at Broadway Church to make our sermons and teaching as creative and memorable as possible. Admittedly, some weeks are more successful. Have to answer questions. So we also here at Broadway work hard at being relevant in our topics and our content.
Oh, my word.
That's where the congregation topics, the top 10, is all about as well. People want answered questions that I was hearing out in the market and driving to and from Turno. When people would find out I'm a pastor, right away, well, I'm in sales.
Just get to the point about
science. But then after that, they get into conversations. That's what Skeptic's all about, doing our best to answer those kind of questions.
No, it's not.
Well,
you don't know what Skeptic is.
It's really a series of questions, and they go like this. Can you believe in God and believe in science at the same time?
We made it. We finally got to the part that's relevant. My word, what a waste of time and energy all that opening was. Yes, you can. However, because I don't like the word belief, I wouldn't say I believe in science. I would say that I agree with it. See, science, unlike the Bible, has plenty of empirical evidence and repeatable tests for it. In fact, that's kind of its thing. That's kind of like what it's known for. Now, there's other aspects of science, but those two are pretty important. So, unlike the Bible, science is repeatably testable. You can make a hypothesis and you can set out to disprove it. Now, set out to disprove anything in the Bible and quickly you're left without much of a Bible. A very few, handful of kings, handful of locations that can actually be confirmed by archaeology, that actually can be confirmed by history, and the rest is story and myth. I say story because there's elements in the Bible that are story, that they're not mythological because there's nothing supernatural going on, but there's nothing to confirm that any of it actually happened either. So it's a story. And there's quite a few things in there like that. And of course there's the Psalm of Solomon, which is just kind of a love letter. And then there's the Psalms, which are just songs that are for God, about God. So those don't really, matter one way or the other. You wouldn't really need those per se. But yeah, I mean, there's not much there. If you filtered it out through science. But yes, you can believe in the Bible and you can agree with science. I like to say whenever anybody says anything about faith is, I don't need faith, I have facts. If you have facts, you don't need faith. And of course, then they invariably complain that I'm not using the right version of faith. No, I am. I'm using the correct version of faith because faith is blind. And there's a verse in the Bible that supports that. Of course, they think it means something different because, of course, they do. But some do admit that it is faith and it is blind faith. Apologists will not admit that because that's their job to not admit to such things. Anyways.
Can you follow Christ and follow the scientific method?
You can, but you have to set your beliefs to the side when you do science. And most of the scientists that happen to be Christian that have actual careers in science and not, they haven't given up on science, they do exactly that. They have to set aside their beliefs, when it comes to science. They go, look, I believe these things privately, but the science just doesn't apply to any of those beliefs. How could it?
Or does believing in God mean you have to deny science?
Well, you have to deny aspects of science. Certainly, you have to ignore certain parts of science because, it depends what you mean by God. In this case, we're talking about Yahweh, a particular type of God. And yes, in order to believe in Yahweh, you definitely have to ignore aspects of science because Yahweh supposedly can do miracles, which are things that defy the laws of physics, which is not scientific. You have a being that can break the laws of nature and reality as we understand them. Well, wouldn't such a being be natural then? And then there wouldn't be a breaking of the laws. No, because Yahweh is posited usually as a supernatural being. Well, what's supernatural? It's not even a category according to science. So you're going to have to ignore that. There's a lot you're going to have to ignore scientifically in order to maintain belief about Yahweh. But yes, you can do it. It is possible to maintain two different ideas in your head at once. And you can even figure out ways to do so without causing cognitive dissonance. But that's not the same as science proving or disproving the Bible, is it? But we're going to get there eventually.
Does studying theological truths mean you have to ignore scientific truths?
Well, let me stop you right there, because there are no theological truths. I mean, not in the way that I would define truth at any rate, because, again, unlike science, theology doesn't come to an agreement. So why are there all these different denominations, right? Different denominations in Christianity and other religions as well. Tons of them for Christianity. Tons and tons. Many, many, many different ones. Because people disagree. Okay. Now, in science, you might have a disagreement about an idea. But then what happens is all the other scientists look at it and go, okay, here's what's wrong with it, or here's what's right with it. And they hammer it out, and it all comes together. And at the end of the process, everybody has an agreement. Theology works the opposite. Nobody ever comes to an agreement. Even the most basic of thing, like how do you get saved, isn't agreed upon amongst Christians. Even those in the same church can have widely various versions of how to be saved or other ideas about what God is, how God works, what Jesus is, how Jesus works, what salvation is, how that works, what sin is, how that works. Some don't like questions at all. Others think they know everything that there is to know, etc. Every Christian is a little bit different. You might find some that are the same, but it's not like science in that. So theologically speaking, the only things you can say are true are that there's words written in a book, and that those words change depending on what version of the book that you use.
All of these questions are summed up in one simple question. Is God and science, or God and the Bible, I should say, anti-science?
Wait, what? All the questions are summed up by a question? That's not how questions work.
Now, where does a question like this come from? Where does anyone get the idea that God and science are in opposition? How would anyone actually believe such a thing?
Well, it's called reality.
Well, have you ever discovered that you believe something that was completely false?
Yes. And that's why I deconverted from Christianity into being a skeptic. This is great. You're just setting them up. I'm just hitting them out.
carried an idea with you for years, only discovered that you're actually misguided.
Yeah, I was a Christian.
For many years, I was carrying a belief that I only a few years ago discovered was wrong. And I believed this for decades.
What was it?
My grandfather on my mother's side, whenever we would go and visit him, he only had these two fingers and half of one finger. He was missing his index finger and half of his middle finger. And so whenever I would visit him as a little kid,
I don't care.
Off by his ponies. Now you have to know them ponies, and them off when I was feeding Snowdrop. Well, feeding horses or ponies, I would have my hand like this, scared of these things. When grandfather, for lunch with my cousin about 10 years ago, and I said, well, that's how Papa lost his fingers. And Snowdrop said, what are you talking about? Thinking horses bite, anti-science. Where does the question in a...
Holy shit! There's a whole story there that I skipped and I don't care about. Anyway,
belief like that even come from? Historically speaking, this idea is a relatively recent development.
Well...
The beginning of modern science is usually traced back to the 16th and 17th centuries. A number of the key thinkers and scientific pioneers were not only theists, but devout Christ followers.
Hey, remember what the Catholic Church did to Galileo? Anyways.
Francis Bacon, Nicholas Copernicus, Robert Boyle, Johann Kepler, Galileo, Isaac Newton, all Christ followers. They're all giants in the field of science, all followers of Jesus. Nonetheless.
And some of them believed in alchemy and other things, but whatever.
The last couple of centuries, this idea that you can't believe in God and science at the same time has grown. Now,
yes, and that's a good thing, actually. It's a good thing in that there's pushback against the nonsensical creationists out there. I'd like to see none of them. And so really, you got to go talk to them. You got to go talk to the creationists and convince them that they're wrong about the Bible. Why can't you do that, Pastor? What's that? No, you don't want to do that? Why not? Go and talk to the creationists. Convince them that their ideas about the Bible are wrong and that their ideas about science are wrong. Why can't you do that? Because they have beliefs and they will stand on the Bible and use that as their justification. And you will attempt to do the same thing. And that's why you'll never get anywhere. Anyways.
Now, this relatively modern idea that God is somehow anti-science is rooted in a worldview known as scientism.
No, you're lying. You're lying again. No, it's not. No.
What is scientism? We have this is the first blank on your outline. Scientism says...
Oh, God, outline again. Fuck your stupid outline. It's just how to indoctrinate people.
We should only believe...
Whatever you tell us to believe.
I'm going to get it exactly as we have it in your outlines. What can be proven scientifically?
Yes, actually, that's probably a good place to start. We should only believe what can be proven scientifically. Now, he's going to then say, oh, but you can't prove that scientifically. Well, yes, you can, depending on what you mean by science. But go ahead, Pastor, do your thing, whatever.
We should only believe what can be proven scientifically.
Get to the point.
That is what's known as scientism. Now, on first glance, this statement appears to be quite a rational and reliable worldview. It sounds so reasonable until you actually think about it. Read it again. We should only believe what can be proven scientifically. Really?
Yeah.
Do you see the problem with this statement?
No.
As your outline says, the problem is that the statement itself cannot be proven scientifically.
Yay, I knew he was going to do it. I called it. Yes, it can, depending on what you mean by science. If informal and formal logic is a subset of science, I can absolutely use it to prove that statement. Or I could go a different way. I could just rephrase the statement, and then you won't know what to do with it after I'm done rephrasing it. I say that with a lot of confidence because I already talked to this guy and he doesn't really seem to know much about logic. So I can reword this statement to be, everything except for this statement should be believed based upon what science can prove. Or I could say everything except for this statement is provable and testable by science. Also, this statement is immune to illogical fallacies. Okay, checkmate, game over. Now what? Can't object to the statement now. Oh, yeah, you don't know. And now you would need a truth table to show why that doesn't work, which you wouldn't know how to make. But at any rate, yeah, no, that's the absurd way to go about it. I could go about the other way, the proper way, where I show that the statement is true, logically speaking. Because if it is true that the best way to understand anything is via the scientific method, then the statement is true regardless of whether or not the statement itself can be shown to be true via the same methodology. Whatever is actually true in reality, we would have to say it's true even if the methods that we've found to use it can't be used on the thing itself, because synthetic speech is different than concrete reality at times. We have abstract ideas. In fact, every single word that you wrote is an abstract idea. So all this does is prove you don't understand what you're talking about. By the way, when you look up scientism, just for fun, it says it's the promotion of science as the best or only objective means by which society should determine normative and epistemological values. See, that's a bit far broader of a reach than just saying we'll prove everything with science. It's actually saying that we should use it for the entire society, like how we run society or something. And that, maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know that any society has attempted that, or where you would begin on an effort to do that. But regardless, we got to straw man what scientism is, because, then it just makes this argument possible. But of course, it's not a good argument, because you can actually use science to prove that the statement is true. And also it doesn't matter because synthetic statements are separate entities anyways, but whatever, that's fine. Yeah.
That's the problem. This statement itself can
Okay, so that's the problem. That's where it came from. Okay, don't care. It's completely and wholly irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Does not matter where the problem came from. Get to the point where you're going to talk about science proving anything that the Bible says. Let's not waste time. Let's just skip to that part if we can find it.
You can Sunday, because sitting in front of me are some of the finest scientific minds in our country and indeed the world. Dr. Stephen Lamb is a follower of Jesus Christ. Lamb is the B program, ending the field of early lung cancer diagnosis. Can a person believe in God and believe in the scientific method at the same time? Asked Dr. Stephen Lamb.
That is an appeal to the majority of one. Wow. Find a scientist that happens to believe in your particular God and ask them this specific question, and they will agree with you. Wow. That's not an argument at all. Anyways, are we going to get to the point where you talk about science proving the Bible?
Javanan is a neurologist at Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't care.
I could go on.
Yes, you could go on and on. Yeah, you're actually listing out people for a change. Why didn't you do that for all the historians that supposedly agree with your for historical non-facts?
God is not anti-science.
Well, yeah, it is, but it doesn't, it depends what you think God is, I guess. But yes, Yahweh is nonsense. It's not even anti anything. It's just an idea. It's a concept in your brain.
To put your faith in God is not to deny science.
Well, no, but it's also not a good way to go about it. Putting your faith in things that you have no proof of is probably a bad idea. And there's no proof of God. I know you tried with your arguments. Arguments aren't proof. But your arguments are flawed. There's no scientific way to show that there's a God. So anyways, are we going to get to the part of what your thing says? Does science disprove the Bible? We were going to get to that? I mean,
the two worlds don't clash, nor do they compete. In fact, they work together. Let me show you.
Okay, finally.
What does science study? The word science literally means knowledge.
The world. Yeah.
However, the word has come to represent the study of a certain field of knowledge. As your outline says, science studies the physical and natural world. It
studies reality. That's all there. Yeah, science studies reality. Okay. And
studies the physical and the natural world.
Yeah.
Now, the word science has come to represent the systematic study of the structure and the behavior of the physical and natural world through
kind of
observation and experiment. This system of observing and experimenting is called the scientific method.
Hey, only I get to put quotes around things like your...
Science wants to know how things work. Science wants to know why things work the way that they work. As your outline says, science studies creation.
No, it does not. The word creation implies a creator. So, no, science doesn't study creation. Study... As the cosmology studies the cosmos, if that's what you're talking about, or aspects of cosmology study the formation of the earth, or biological evolution studies how species evolve. So what the hell science are you talking about that studies creation? Unless you're talking about, I don't know, science on art, like scientific analysis of an art piece, you could do that. That would be an actual creation that you could actually study. What the hell are you talking about? I don't know.
And scientists devote the best hours of their lives to investigating and testing and researching our world at both the telescopic and microscopic level. Science is exciting. Science is always expanding. I love reading about what they're discovering and finding as men and women uncover new insights about the physical world around us. Science is a wonderful field of knowledge, but it's only one field of knowledge.
Wrong. It's more than a field of knowledge. My God, you don't know what's science. This is the thing. When pastor is talking and saying these things about science, I just think, these are your ideas of what it is, because my ideas of what it is are far grander. Science isn't just a way of looking or observing things. It's a way to skeptically interrogate the world. It's more than just a body of knowledge. There's a quote, and I'm trying to get it up here. Who said it when? Okay, Carl Sagan, of course, Carl Sagan. Science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe. So it's much more than a field of knowledge. God.
The fallacy of scientism is that it sees science as the only field of knowledge. The fallacy of scientism is that it claims to be the only way to discover truth.
No.
Years ago, a clip that has been circulating. There's a clip, I should say, that's been circulating on YouTube for years now. It exposes the fallacy of scientism. Years ago, William F. Buckley Jr., the famous author and commentator, he hosted a debate between Dr. Peter Atkins, the well-known professor of chemistry and an outspoken atheist, and Dr. William Lane Craig, Broadway, a few years ago.
Craig is not a scientist, so I don't really care about that thing. Whatever, get to the point.
Taken together with a reason why people believe, desperate to believe, together with the fact that you don't need actually a God, in a sense amounts to an argument against the existence of God.
Well, I guess I don't see that. I mean, why doesn't that commit the genetic fallacy?
Oh, Craig and your genetic fallacy. Anyways, skip. Not important, not relevant, doesn't show us how science proves the Bible. I mean, the question is, does science disprove the Bible? So if you want to say no, then how does science prove any aspect of the Bible? That seems to follow. So far, we've had nothing but random, irrelevant tangents. Are we going to get to the point?
Our minds in the study of theology.
Don't care about theology.
We saw that science studies the physical and natural world. So what does theology study? As your outlines.
Theology, depending on it studies what the textbook says. That's it. It studies the holy book and the traditions thereof. Studies church history, stuff like that. That's all. Theology is just mental masturbation. It's a fan club. It's like you get together with a bunch of friends and you all love Marvel movies. All the Marvel movies. You're super fans of the Marvel movies. You couldn't care less about the comics or the TV shows or whatever. Well, maybe you like the TV shows as well. And you're like, you want to sit there and you all talk about, okay, who can lift Thor's hammer? How does this work? And you're all debating it. Like, there was that line where if the hammer's in the elevator can lift it. How can the elevator lift it? The elevator's not worthy. So does that count? Like, if I put the hammer on a lever, could I move the hammer then with the lever? And you're debating this as if it's real because it's fun. And you all know that it's not real. Everyone there absolutely knows that Thor's hammer doesn't really exist. But there's a rule about the hammer, and the hammer can only be picked up and wielded by someone who is worthy. And we only saw 3 characters that could do that in the movies. Thor, Captain, and what's his face? Vision. That's it. Okay. Those are the 3 worthy. Maybe there's other people that are worthy, but Black Widow didn't try. Maybe she could have lifted it. We don't know. And we didn't see the Hulk attempt it really either. We only saw Banner attempt it and then do his funny thing. Okay. But it's not a real hammer. It doesn't really exist. So you can't test it. All you can do is discuss it. Discuss what's written. Well, here's some behind the scenes stuff that I found out about it. Well, what about this comic? It says this. What about that? That's what theology is. But it's worse than that because you pretend that it's all real in theology. That's you could have a club that's like Star Trek Club, Star Wars Club, whatever, and you could talk about fantasy realms and how things work or don't work. Can the Death Star blow up the Enterprise or whatever the hell it is? Whatever it is you want to argue about, and none of it matters because none of it's really real. And in theology, you pretend it's all really real, and then you debate about it. So theology is just studying the made-up stuff, but it's also studying some real stuff, like what church history was like, different ways of doing a sermon or conducting a church, different methods therein, different traditions that were once held, things like that. So study some real stuff as well, but very, very minor real stuff. But that real stuff only exists because of the fictional stuff that you all believe is true. You all go to Thor church every Thursday and worship Thor. And then you go home and you talk about Thor, and you get online and you debate about Thor, and you try to convince those damn pesky atheists, agnostics, and skeptics that Thor exists. How else could you have Thor's Day without Thor? Lightning equal Thor, you idiot. How do you explain lightning if you don't have Thor? And that's what theology is. Anyways, yeah, I think I made my point.
It says, theology studies the metaphysical and supernatural world. The metaphysical and supernatural world. Now, what do we mean by metaphysical and supernatural? Meta means beyond or transcending. Beyond or transcending the physical. Metaphysical and supernatural describe a realm of reality that can't be seen under a microscope or placed in a test tube.
Right. So it's magic. It's the same. It's exactly the same. Talking about magic. It's a magical realm that you cannot see or explore or test in any way, shape, or form. It's magic. Okay.
Metaphysical and supernatural refer to the realm of the spirit, the soul, the mind, not the brain.
The mind. Oh, yes. Now, this gets into substance dualism, which the pastor mentioned briefly during our Q&A, and I wish I'd had more time to focus in on that. I don't buy into substance dualism, not even a little. Your mind is your brain, basically. For all extensive part, there's many ways to think about it, many analogies. I guess I'll go with traffic. If you take away the cars, there is no traffic. And in this case, the cars would be your brain. But also, you need the roadways to some extent as well. But if you take that away, there's no more traffic. You take away the thing that makes traffic a thing, then it goes away. So if you take away the brain, you have no mind. That's it. It's gone. No mind. There is no example of a mind without a brain. Now, maybe one day we'll get a mind in a computer. We're getting close on that, I think. People are still getting closer with it every, it seems like, every moment, every second you want to say, we'll hit that singularity and that will be it for us humans, if that's possible. I don't know. But metaphysics is beyond. It is something that is beyond. And I made a video called The Metaphysics of Link's Awakening, and nobody cared about it. Because all it is just kind of like, basically it's mental masturbation about what I think of Link's Awakening. And, you guys and girls and robots don't care about it. I cared about it. I wanted to do it. It was fun for me, but, it's just kind of it's weird. It's like, this doesn't belong on your channel. But every now and then, it's okay to wax philosophically on something. But like masturbation, maybe it should be done in private. And maybe it shouldn't be done in front of children. Wait, what am I talking about? I don't know anymore. Back to the video.
The mind. Think in these terms. If science studies creation, as your outline says, theology studies the creator.
Yeah, that's why I said science doesn't study creation, you lying sack of potatoes.
If science studies creation, theology studies the creator.
No, theology studies the things that say that there's a creator, which is the Bible in your case. So yeah, I guess.
These two areas are not in conflict with one another. They're simply...
Well, but they are. When theology makes a claim about reality, it is in direct opposition to science in that moment. Period. End of story. That's how that works. The moment that the Bible makes a claim about reality is the moment that it has acquired the burden of proof and will conflict with science. All right. Now, I had a video out a while back. History of the World, I guess, by creationists. And this goes over the creationist view of how the world was created, which there's a couple of different ways that the world is created in the Genesis account. It's all mixed up. And, weird things happen. Timeline gets rearranged. Snakes talk, and it's just none of it makes any sense. And that's fine because it's a belief. It's mythology. You can believe it's real, but you can't do science and think it's real. You cannot perform it. The creationist people have been trying to fake doing science on this forever. ID has failed. It is nothing but creationists retrapped in another way. ID is not anything. It's nonsense. So, anyways,
focusing upon different areas. Science wants to know how creation works. Theology wants to know who the creator is.
Well, theology wants to assert who the creator is. Theology asserts, science demonstrates. But all this is just this does this, there are two different categories. I agree, there are two different categories. One I can use all the time and rely upon. The other one, not so much. Theology, depending on which theology, by the way, of course, this is Christian theology. This is pastor's version of Christian theology. And his is less annoying than others, perhaps, but not as less annoying as what I would like it to be. But that's my personal preference. So, yeah, that's right. I should have mentioned this. And there's a video calling what all this is the supernatural cosmic turtle. That's right. That video. I should hype that video up because that video was made by somebody who knows what they're doing. I just uploaded it. Anyways, all right. What am I doing here? Back to this.
Science focuses upon what God made. Theology focuses upon what God thinks.
No, science doesn't say anything about God at all. And yes, theology can assert all things that it wants to. Yeah, what does God think? I don't know. I mean, even if God told you, I'm thinking of an apple, God could be lying for all I know. So I'm never going to know what God is thinking. Like, what am I thinking about right now? Go on, take a guess. Guess in chat. And then later, when it's an actual video, guess in the comments below. Go on. You better say lobsters. There better be like nothing but lobsters in the comments. Anyway, so all this has not yet answered if any of the science proves anything in the Bible. Yes, they're separate categories. Please get off of this. Get to the point.
Science studies the footprint. Theology studies the one wearing the shoes.
Wait, what? No, actually, you could use forensic science to determine what shoes somebody asked or it. All right.
Studies don't conflict.
Yes, they do.
Overlap.
No, they don't.
And when they do overlap, when they do work together, they strengthen each other. Theology makes science possible by providing an ordered world.
No, theology does not do that. Science operates on that the world, that the universe as we understand it, well, you don't even know. When you first start out, like if you were to start from scratch and just start, documenting findings, you would quickly find that there are rules and order to this world, and you could extrapolate that out to the universe, or you could go into space and do some more experiments to see if they work. Like, when they got to the moon, they dropped a bowling ball and a feather. They landed at the same time. It was great. So, yeah, it's just everything that look, just so does science disprove the Bible? The answer so far is what? What's the answer? Either it's yes or no, And it's like, well, there are different categories. Yeah, okay. And
theology makes science possible.
Oh, no, right. You're just doing presuppositionalism. Right. That's what I was going to complain about. Right. You're just saying that theology gives a groundwork or a reason why the universe is ordered. We don't need a God, though, for that. The universe does have rules. That's the way it is. We don't need any other explanation than that brute fact. That's how, and science just goes, that's the way it is. And we don't ever need to insert God anywhere into that equation. Theology needs God to be the answer, no matter what the answer turns out to be. And I asked this of Pastor when I did the Q&A. I said, what would a universe without a God look like? He couldn't come up with it. He had nothing to offer. He's like, it wasn't. It can't be. Can't conceive of a universe without a creator. On the other hand, I can conceive of a universe with a creator and without one. Maybe I have a better imagination. I don't know. But at any rate, so yeah, he couldn't do it. I don't know what that means. Anyways, so what's the answer to the question? Does science disprove the Bible? Well, yes, but he's not saying yes. So no then, but he's not saying that either. What is he saying? Oh, he's saying that theology enables science to get off the ground, which it doesn't. So anyways.
By providing an ordered world. What do we mean? This whole scientific enterprise is based upon certain assumptions. Assumptions which cannot be proven scientifically.
Wrong. It's not based on assumptions. It's based on an observed fact. And yes, those facts are proven by the fact that we observe it and write it down. That's what makes it you idiot. Oh my God. Just
but which are guaranteed by the Christian worldview.
No.
One of these assumptions is that we live in a world that's rational, a world that's orderly and structured, a world that operates according to dependable laws.
But you don't have that in Christianity because you have a being that can break any of the laws whenever it feels like it. And it has broken those laws in the past, supposedly. And there's nothing, apparently, to stop it from doing that again. And some people are waiting for it to come back and do some more breaking of some more laws eventually. Because they believe in the rapture and stuff like that. So, no, Christianity cannot provide a stable foundation at all. You can insist that, well, God wouldn't screw things up so badly that we couldn't do science, but you don't know that. You'd have to have faith in that. You have to have faith that God's going to keep things going the way they've been going. And that means there's no miracles. That means there's no divine intervention ever, period, end of story. It doesn't happen. That any events that happened in the past were one-time exceptions to the norm that God performed for whatever bizarre reason to prove that it existed. I don't know. I think God could have proved it existed in a lot better way than what it chose to do, according to the Bible, but that's just me. Again, my imagination seems to be better than the God of the Bible's imagination. But then again, I actually exist and have an imagination, and the God of the Bible is just made from imagination. So, of course, it doesn't do what would make sense to do to prove that it exists. Anyways, so, yeah.
That's why the whole scientific program grew out of the Christian worldview. Because they realized the world is worth studying. It's orderly. It's not chaotic. It's designed. It's orderly. It's rational.
Not designed.
Remember what the Bible says in Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world being understood from what has been made, God's rational nature is revealed in his creation. It's what exists without this assumption. Assumption grounded in a Christian worldview.
Whatever.
And historically, that's exactly what has happened. Christian theology provides. People forget that the entire university system was initially set up by the church.
It doesn't matter at all. Now, this is a good example of the genetic fallacy. Kind of just a backwards version of it. well, because we set up the system, that makes us right or better or whatever. No, it doesn't matter. Just, it has nothing to do with anything. It's completely and wholly irrelevant to any of this. The question asked, whoever wrote this, I don't know, maybe it probably wasn't pastor. Well, if you believe the pastor, leave that up to you to decide. That nothing that happens on Broadway Church's channel is up to him. Like, he doesn't monitor this. He doesn't enable or disable comments. That's somebody else. He's just the pastor of the church. So I guess that he has some say over what happens to the channel, but he doesn't like manage the channel or whatever, supposedly. He has his own YouTube channel that has no content. It's just his username or whatever. So at any rate, so it wasn't him that came up with this question, right? But he asked this incoherent question way back at the start that he then answered with another question and then had another question to answer that question because he thinks a question can answer a question. And basically that question was not just science disprove the Bible. The question that he is asking and trying to answer is if the two, if you can believe in one and the other at the same time. And the answer to that is obviously yes. And also it doesn't really matter. A more important, better question to answer would have been, does science disprove or prove the Bible? But we're not answering or asking that question. And we've hit an hour. So, damn it, I'm not done. There's more to go. 24, 28, remember that? 28, 38. All right, that's it. I guess we'll do part whatever. Science still doesn't prove the Bible. At some point, I'll get to that. And maybe next time I'll have a special guest on to rake over the coals, the Q&A section of the pastor with me to outline how wrong he was on all the things. Or not just wrong, but like, did he answer any questions? I don't know. Maybe we'll do that next time. And then we'll finish up this week 5, which is just like you can do science and believe in the Bible. And supposedly the pastor thinks that Christianity gives a foundation for the Bible. But that would be true of every religion, wouldn't it? So, yeah, you just show up and it's time to go. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. How do I say that name? Oh God. BJ Price. Okay, I don't know. Yeah, 7 more hours. 7 more hours. I could keep going, or I could end it now. As far as the video, not me ending it like my life. No, I'm gonna keep going with my life because it's my life. This is my life. You're my life. I love you all, but only if you leave comments in the comment section. BJ is fine. I'm a kid. Okay, leave your comments in the comment section once this becomes a video. Please do that for YouTube's algorithms. You broke me. Price broke me. You've broken me. You've broken me. I'm broken now. I'm broken. I can't think anymore. It's all your fault. This is my mental meltdown part of the video. You all know what blah blah. The comments, leave them in the comment section. None of your chat counts. It's not showing up on YouTube proper, even though I said to do it on YouTube, and it's not doing it. It's unsubscribing me from channels. I noticed that again. I don't know. YouTube is weird. I'll probably be canceled for something that I said at some point. I don't know. Enjoy. Bye, lobsters. I love you all. All the lobsters. You're all lobsters now. Put a comment under the video about lobsters and I'll send you pizza rolls. Part 5. Deconverted man goes insane. And then it'll be like the thing that happens. Yeah. Look forward to it. See you then.